Now, over the course of setting over 4,000 burial vaults, I've gotten pretty good at creating a level platform. But luckily, someone in the comments told me the right way to do it. So today I busted out my grandpa's level just to take a look. But for the most part, a level is not what you want to use to create a burial vault platform.
So for the vaultmen that are just getting started, when it comes to your platform, you don't need to break out a level. Just use your eyesight and make sure that it's level facing from the side. When it comes to the 4x4s, you want the side that's going to have the lid to be slightly higher. So when the weight of that lid goes back onto the rails and the rails bend just a hair, the vault still appears level. So if you were using a bubble level and put it on the side, of course it's not going to be level. If it was, what would happen is when you push that lid back, the rails are going to bend ever so slightly, and it's going to look like the entire vault is leaning backwards away from the family. Now personally, I want my base to be level, and I want my rails to be at a slight incline. That way, when the vault lid goes back, it stays level, and the base is already level. The most important aspect of your platform is dispersing the weight out from the edges of the grave. Now on a day like today, we haven't had rain, real good rain in a couple weeks. This ground's hard as a rock. As you can tell, I just pulled in on the grass here. This is an access drive for cemetery equipment. The ground is absolutely hard as a rock. I'm not worried about caving in because it's not sandy soil either. So on a day like today, I can keep my boards in tight and make sure there's nothing sticking out for the family to trip on. Now if I was in a super sandy cemetery and it's been raining, I will put 8-foot long boards out across underneath my 4x4s to help disperse that weight. Now one other thing for the new guys to keep in mind is that these aluminum boards don't have to be 2 feet longer than the vault on each end. Now my middle boards are longer. You can see they hang out 1.5 feet on this end, 6 inches on that end. These boards on the front here used to be those same middle boards that I use, but I cut them down to the exact length of a burial vault. That way my feet sit right at the edge of the aluminum board. This makes it so that there's not a bunch of aluminum boards sticking out for family to catch their shins on when they're putting the casket on. So I cut down my front platform to the size of the burial vault for a platform for me to walk on and for flowers to sit and things of that sort. I use aluminum on the front because they're more stable and they don't bounce as much. I use wood boards on the back because I don't have that many aluminum boards to cut down. So wood boards go on the back. They're more bouncy, so I don't want to use those in the front. Those are perfectly fine to support the weight of the feet and to help support the weight of the vault, but I'd rather use those on the back so it's not as springy, making people nervous when they walk up to take a flower off the flower spray, off the casket. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use the Johnny Handler from True Rebel Equipment. We've got an open shot from the end. So basically what we want to do with the Johnny Handler is have this frame come out perfectly level, supported on both sides, directly centered over the grave, so that when I lower it down, it sits precisely where I want it, not too far to one end, not too far to one side. And when I go to swing the vault, I won't have any alterations to make of where the vault sits above the grave. Now the only downside to this piece of equipment that I found is that it's loud. So I'm gonna have to do a voiceover for the rest of this part of the process.
Now this job isn't meant to be easy, but the Johnny Handler from True Rebel Equipment really takes a lot of strain off of our backs and helps us to keep us safer in the cemetery when placing a 2,000 to 3,000 pound burial vault onto the platform. The first thing we need to do is release our cable from the underside of the frame. Eventually, I'll make a chain system with some fire hose wrapped around it to keep from damaging the vault and to make it so I don't have to get under the vault to release the cable. We can then unhook our boom and place it over our aluminum boards and wood boards. Now just as a precaution, I stack 2 wood boards on top of each other and I release that bottom extension out just 1 click shy of the side with the aluminum boards. And now when I go to place the vault over the grave, I want to line up the vault directly in line with the 2 aluminum boards towards the family side.
Now there's 2 ways to get the vault out over the grave. One is to just push it. It'll slide right out. I can adjust it using manual labor. The other option is the winch system that this Johnny Handler has that you can just pull the vault out over the grave. So generally I just manhandle it, but today I'll show you how the winch works.
The cable on this winch system runs through the winch that goes down the boom. A small circular piece on the cable catches the winch on the boom and pulls the winch out over the grave. There's also a handle on the main winch that can lock onto that small circular piece, allowing us to move the vault back and forth to place it over the middle of the grave. This really comes in handy when it's not possible to get the boom perfectly level on hillsides. Even with using the hydraulics, sometimes the boom is still at an upward angle, and that winch can really help out instead of having to use manual labor to push the vault out over the grave. We always look to avoid pinch points where the vault may swing back, pinning us or pinning an appendage up against the boom or the buggy itself. Even the best vaultmen can't guarantee that equipment will not fail at some point, so it's important that we stay safe and stay out of the way of the heavy equipment.
And then what we're going to do, instead of trying to move the boom in by hand, we're just going to lower the front of the buggy, drive it forward, that way we can get inside the boom and close it up much easier.
Our main focus when moving the buggy away from the vault is making sure that the boom doesn't slam up against the sides of the vault, especially when doing a shot from the side, where the boom needs to be lifted over the burial vault. When doing a side shot, you may even tip the vault over or dislodge the lid from above the base. Now the only thing left to do is lock our buggy back down, place the feet in the boom in their upright positions, and attach the winch to the bottom of the buggy, making sure there's no slack, and then locking down the winch to make sure it's not sliding up and down the boom as we're driving down the road. We can then attach our harness back to the buggy and move the buggy out of sight and out of the way for when the service arrives. Now here's a little bit more about my platform.
So it may not seem like much, but you can see it now. My feet will go right on top of these aluminum boards with my carpets over them. These aluminums will not be here. But if you can imagine, if we were using these long aluminums on the side here, and you're a pallbearer walking the casket up, if you're not paying attention, you might just walk your shin right into the edge of one of those aluminum boards. So I prefer to have mine cut down. That way the family can get all the way up next to the lowering device, where I'll be standing right here to help assist them in placing the casket. Of course, we want the vault and the casket and the grave to stay safe during the service, but we also want to look out for the pallbearers as well. You don't want to be carrying your grandpa up to the grave, trying to mourn with your family and get through this service, celebrate the life that was lived, and you're walking up here and all of a sudden you got a big old gash in your shin. That's not something as a vault man we should accept. So we're going to make sure we do everything we can to take those hazards away. Now this is a Trigard Estate, and the white paint that we use at the shop is perfectly fine, but it does show the scratches, the dirt, or anything a lot better. And they asked for a lot of glitter, a lot of pink multicolored glitter on this lid. So I'm going to go ahead and touch this whole thing up with white spray paint, put some caps where the screws go. I think the caps just look a little bit better. Get those painted up, add a little bit more glitter, and then we'll be ready to swing this vault.